And Bob, is there anything, Bob, is there anything that we need before we get started?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we can just go. I don't have anything to ask for anyway.
Okay. Well, okay, we can go ahead and get started. So I've spotlighted just you and me, Bob, and I know where I dropped the agenda in the chat. So we're doing some welcomes and some intros. I know some folks got on early, but we made some time just for welcome and intros too. So if you could, we'll do a little icebreaker in the chat, if you will. Your name. I know some people have like added their precinct numbers and their ward numbers to their avatars or their names in the participation list, so to speak. But an icebreaker for today is, actually I was like, oh no, I had one and then I lost it. Yeah. What are some of your big plans for the summer? Knowing that it's July 10th and we are in the midst of summer, so to speak, but does anyone have any big plans, any travel plans, anything they want to do around the house or anything like that? I know every year I want to garden, but that just never happens. So, but I already did my vacation. So we went to Boston. That's what we did, our big plans for the summer. But if anyone else has plans they're going to share, you're welcome to do that. So introduce yourself. You're welcome to introduce yourself, your name, your pronouns, your precinct or your ward number, and what are your big plans for the summer in the chat. And as Flora says on our monthly executive committee calls, and go. Bob, do you have any big vacation plans or summer plans for yourself?
Well, I just kind of came back from a short vacation. I've got a couple of projects I want to get done this summer. I guess that's my idea of a big plan for now, at least.
Cool. Thanks,
and
Jeff.
I've noticed with the rain, I've got about 1 million weeds in my backyard. So I guess I better say that's a big plan too.
Yeah, that's going to be us here in about a week. It just, it's like really green back there. And yeah. Jeff, I was going to ask, how's Ruidoso looking after all the fires and stuff? Because I know it's been pretty, I know it's pretty bad. My parents go down there all the time just for.
We haven't gone down yet. It'll be kind of mid-July. We're going to go down and meet up with them. So we'll see if we see any effects.
Yeah, I hope they're doing all right down there.
Me too.
Yeah. Dennis just got back from Durango yesterday. Ooh, Durango is amazing. Thank you so much. Rafting, whitewater rafting is pretty awesome. Betsy, retired insurance agent and Paul, yes. Thank you for your service on that. Just missed my big event, going to California for family wedding and reunion. Ooh, COVID stopped that. I'm so sorry. COVID. Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, I feel like it's like a different time and place, like a week of COVID. Oh my gosh. Phil, got my tomatoes and squash growing. Oh, good deal. Early September, going to New York City for 2 Giants games. Wow, all right. Who are they playing in those two games, Phil?
They're playing the Cowboys and the Bears.
Okay, those are 2 big games. All right. Anyone else willing to share like what their big plans are? Oh, I just saw Laura. Laura's iPad is here. I'm just kidding, Laura. Good to see you. Oh, Carl. Just been gardening. Awesome. Backyard and at the bio. You garden at the biopark too? I didn't know you could do that. Big plan is to avoid COVID. I know. It's, yeah, avoid COVID as much as you can. I will tell you the irony of me getting COVID in the last week is that I got it by not leaving the house. So Lisa works at the library and one of her coworkers actually tested positive and she came home and I was like, oh no. And so I got my symptoms pretty much within a day of being exposed to Lisa, and she and I were basically sick at the same time. Jeff says I'm not a Giants fan, but I'm rooting for them in those 2 games. Phil, are awesome. I'm not a Giants fan either. I'm a Steelers fan. Hopefully, I heard that. Hopefully it's not that bad of a year this year. Who knows? Oh my. Anyone else willing to share their big summer plans? like, Sandy, do you have any big summer plans? What's the deal? I know I don't mean to pick on you, just like on the spot. You don't have to go if you don't want to.
So I'm pretty much avoiding COVID myself and getting ready to do voter registration.
Nice. Avoid the COVID as much as you can, folks. That's all I got to say. All right. It was about 3:08. We can go ahead. Oh, Felice, which moved from 11A to 11C. Yes, welcome, precinct 165 to 11C. Heading to the Trinity Alps in California for 10 days. Ooh, that sounds nice. Working on the September Fest. Yes, so Adrien, you're in precinct 374. All right. I'm like, which one is precinct? I'm like looking at my map. Where is that? Let me double check. Why? Adrien, you are over there by Indian School in Carlisle. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Like Jefferson and Indian School, Washington and Indian School.
I'm like, who is the? I'm like, Flora would know. I'm like, who is that? The only reason I could see
Look it up and I can't find it, but I know we can figure it out at some point.
we can figure it out. There's a lot of Democrats on the call. We know.
Exactly.
Like, I just have this big, huge precinct map on my wall. I don't. That doesn't necessarily tell me anything other than blah, 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 blah. Like,
what precinct is he in?
374.
Okay, let me figure it out.
I love it. Anything I can trust in this group, it's like, oh, we need information. Let's go get it. Barbara, good to see you. Who's with you today?
Chris Shepker.
Hi, good to see you too.
She's been the precinct chair for 123. And even though we're not in the ward, we still are happy to be at the meeting.
The love that you're here at the meeting. I know Flora's looking up some information. We're meeting our son and his girlfriend in Idaho to camp. That's awesome. Stay away from those redoubters, Flora, because you're up there. Oh my gosh, those folks are. If you don't know what that is, look up American Redoubt. It's a little scary. There was a Vice documentary on it about. Yeah, just be prepared to not smile.
No.
Like a good 2 hours. Anyway, well, it's 3:10, so we can go ahead and get started. But for folks just joining us on the call today, you're welcome to introduce yourself, your name, your pronouns, your precinct or your ward, and any plans that you're having for the summer. I know a lot of folks have shared some awesome plans in the chat, so really glad to hear from folks. But our first speaker today is Adrien Lawyer over at the Transgender Resource Center of New Mexico. Adrien is a really awesome person, and I'm so used to him on his sofa today, but he's off visiting family, so he's not in the usual place that I see him at, but that is quite all right. But we want to give a warm welcome for Adrien just to talk a little bit more about trans justice and some of the work that you're doing and all the work the organization's doing, and also how can we be supportive of that work. I know it's always a critical time for folks impacted by this kind of legislative work that's happening across our country. So please give a warm Zoom welcome to Adrien Lawyer from all of our folks here. And Adrien, thanks for joining us on a Sunday. We'll pass the floor to you. I'll spotlight you.
Thank you, Flora. That's awesome. Thank you for helping me know that. Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen as well. I have a few little slides. And remind me what my stop time needs to be, Robert.
I believe you were on till 3:35, Adrien.
Okay. Oh, wow. Awesome.
Good.
Okay, perfect. Stop me if you need to, though, just stop me. I can go all day and night talking about this. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, which is where I'm from. Memphis, Tennessee, and Jackson, Mississippi are where I grew up. So my brother and my dad still live here in Memphis. My mom still lives down in Mississippi. So my kiddo and I are here for just a few days visiting family. That's some of my big summer plans. That was the icebreaker. I also get to go to New York in August, hopefully, if we're not having a horrible COVID wave by then with the Australian variant. I hope not. I'm going to go see some Broadway shows, so I'm super excited about that. All right. TGRC. So we are the only organization in New Mexico that exists for no other reason than to serve trans and non-binary people and our families and loved ones throughout the state. And we are very intentionally not the Transgender Resource Center of Albuquerque. We are the Transgender Resource Center of New Mexico. And in fact, we're kind of the Transgender Resource Center of the Southwest, if there were one, because there's not transgender resource centers in our neighboring states in this way. There is trans activism everywhere. There is amazing trans resistance happening everywhere. Trans people engaging in mutual aid, helping each other in so many different ways. But everything I'm about to tell you about TGRC, we don't know of another organization that does all the stuff I'm about to describe to you within, an 800-mile radius of us. So we know that we get calls sometimes from Texas, Colorado, Arizona, and we try to just help those folks if we're able to. I'm actually, as of the 1st, I am called the Executive Director Emeritus of TGRC, and our new ED, I'll be there till the end of the year helping to create and train our senior leadership team. But our new Executive Director, his name is Michael Trim. So if you want to meet Michael, just call me, contact me. All my contact info is in the chat window right now. And we would love to meet with you. I'd love to introduce you to Michael. So anytime you want to have Michael come by, even a meeting or anything, and be introduced, we'd love to do that. I'm sorry I wasn't able to work that out for today, just because I'm traveling and all that. It was a little bit too hard to coordinate, but we'd love to introduce folks to Michael whenever you want to meet him. But I'm not just the ED Emeritus at TGRC. I'm one of the founders. So I'm a particular type of species in the nonprofit world, which is I'm one of the people who created TGRC. So there's a certain kind of cuckoo you have to be a founder of a nonprofit. And I think I have all of those symptoms for sure. But I also means I love talking about it. So let me tell you all a little bit about the center. You know it, Robert, you know it. So in nonprofits, we call it direct services when we're just trying to help people in our target population. So these are, in fact, the things that we are able to do for people all over New Mexico. Wherever you are, you can reach out to us over the internet, via the phone. If you know any of us, you can reach out to our individual email accounts. There's no wrong door at TGRC. And we're able to help people legally change their names, obtain or update their identity documents. We do a lot of emergency financial assistance. We are right in the process of interviewing a full-time therapist who will be engaging in services for our drop-in participants. I'll tell you about the drop-in center in just a second, but who will also be doing telehealth for people in rural parts of New Mexico who are trans and non-binary at no cost to those folks. So we're going to be really providing direct counseling services to trans and non-binary people in some underserved areas here pretty soon, as soon as we get through this round of interviews and hiring. We're super excited about that funding. We got that through the state Behavioral Health Services Division. So shout out to them for wanting to increase services to underserved folks. We do a ton of information and referrals, but that also includes a provider directory on our website. So you don't even have to reach out to us to find out if there's trans-friendly businesses or providers near you. If we know about them, they're in our provider directory, and you can search that 24 hours a day by keyword or location on our website. We send out a lot of trans-specific items, which can mean all kinds of stuff: wigs, gaffs, special kind of underwear. But I would say the most common request that we get is for what's called a binder. And that's an undergarment, a compression undergarment that flattens and compresses the chest. If folks have not had surgery on their chest, but want to create a flatter appearing, what we think of typically as a more masculine appearing chest. For some people, if they haven't had surgery, that binder can be the thing that helps them feel like they can leave their home, but it can cost you about $50 to get a binder. So we purchase those and send them out to folks wherever they can safely pick it up. We have a statewide outreach program for people who are incarcerated. And we have about 20 people in state custody who we correspond with, provide some money order support. We actually now have a staff person whose job it is to run that program. So we're excited that people are getting more consistent support that way now. And peer support is something that we do, which can mean just talking to people one-on-one, but also would incorporate all of our 9 different support groups that meet all throughout the month. So these groups meet once a month in person, and then they meet a second time every month on Zoom. So again, what we've realized is that's allowing some people in really rural parts of New Mexico to join these groups for the first time. We opened up Zoom access because of COVID, actually. But once we did it, we realized it was a huge access issue. And so we're not going to take away Zoom access to these groups, because we have people from Mora and Deming and Roswell connecting into these communities now, finally. So very exciting stuff. Look at all the different types of groups that we have every single month. We do have a physical location in Albuquerque. That's the one thing that we do that really is only in Albuquerque right now, is our drop-in center. And the drop-in center is at Domingo and La Veda, right near the big Bank of the West building there at Central and San Mateo. And at the drop-in is where we're trying to think about and center the needs of our most vulnerable people. So the drop-in center is where we serve a lot of folks who aren't safely and stably housed. And all of the things on the screen are the things that they have taught us that they need and want. We have a shower at the drop-in center. We have washers and dryers. We serve as a permanent mailing address for a lot of our folks. We have permanent storage for their things. I mean, really, the list goes on and on and on of stuff that we do at the drop-in. And food is a big part of it, because we know, as it says on the screen here, that sometimes the only meal folks have is the meal they get at TGRC on the days that we're open. And we serve about 30 hot meals every shift that we're open, but we also give out a lot of non-perishable, immediately edible foods, you know, like shelf-ready foods for the days that we're not there. So if you're into donating stuff like food, we don't really need people to cook. We have a contractor that we work with for our hot meals, but we do need we need like cups of applesauce and, you know, granola bars and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's always something we're in need of. We do advocacy work, right? That means policy and legislative work. Right now, we help to kind of disrupt a really dangerous policy at APS last week, which was about a parents' rights policy, which was going to really violate a lot of LGBT kids' privacy. It was about to be a really dangerous thing that was going to happen. And we were able to get in there and call people out to come to the committee meeting and make a presence and bring enough of our supporters out that they kind of tabled that policy for a little while. So we were really excited about that. We've worked with APS over the years many times, also MVD, right? All different kinds of entities that we do policy work with. This I'll tell you in a little bit, but oh, here it is already on this screen. Our biggest legislative victory, I think, was in 2019. It updated the way you change the gender on your birth certificate in New Mexico. Prior to 2019, the law said that you had to have surgery on your body. So we eliminated that really archaic, prohibitive requirement, and we just made it a form that you fill out and get notarized, and then they'll change your birth certificate to whatever you say it should be, including X. So now since 2019, you can get M, F, or X on your birth certificate thanks to the work of us and EQ&M. And because we did that, it was really easy to get MVD to match that too. So now, because of all of us, you can get M, F, or X on your birth certificate or driver's license in New Mexico since 2019. The birth certificate was law, the driver's license was policy, administrative policy, right? It's interesting how those things change from state to state, and you just have to learn and become experts on that too in order to help people get their documents in a better way. In 23, our biggest goal is to update the name change law. We've been working on this and we really want to see it completed in 23. We still have a really archaic and prohibitive publication requirement on our name change statute. In order to change your name in district court, you have to run an ad in the paper for 2 weeks that announces your old name and your new name and the date of your hearing. And it's really old timey, that was meant to protect creditors, right? But it was social security number. Like I couldn't piece out on my credit cards when I changed my name, right? Like they still knew it was me because I have a social security number. So we need to get rid of this. It actually outs people in a really dangerous way, and there's no reason to have it. It actually doesn't help anybody, but it does hurt people. So we're gonna make sure that changes. And we have to continue to be the ones who stand against the negative laws that are going to continue to be proposed. I don't know if y'all saw, there was an article in the journal today talking about it. A pretty good article actually, about the kind of landscape around this. And Marshall, our friend at EQNM, the ED at EQNM, Marshall Martinez, gave a quote talking about, we expect to see more of these things. And in 21, we saw an anti-trans student athlete bill. But of course, because we're New Mexico, we were able to just we just smashed it in committee. So it never even, got out of committee, which is lucky for us, but we always have to be on the lookout to make sure we see that show up and just burn it down as fast as we can. We also do a huge amount of education. If I had more time, I would do a little teaser for the training, but I'm just about to run out of time as it is. So I want to tell y'all that we do a really amazing 2-hour training. Sure. A 2-hour training called Transgender Cultural Fluency that we're always excited to do for any group of 5 or more people. So if y'all have any groups of 5 or more that you would like to take the transcultural fluency training, you can get in touch with me via my contact info in the chat. And it seems like we need to kind of switch gears for a second here, and then I'll come back and finish mine. Let me stop sharing.
Adrien, I really apologize, and thank you so much for being so flexible.
I understand.
I also just want to say too, like that training is amazing. Just I've done it, and I know a few other folks have done it, and we should probably do it ourselves here in the Democratic Party as well. So I'm just going to pause and thank you again for pausing with us, Adrien. I'm just going to ask Rachael Lorenzo to come on, because I know you're at the airport, Rachael. So I'm going to spotlight you really quickly, and you can lead us through a little bit what's going on with Indigenous Women Rising. And as soon as I can find your name, where to go? Oh my gosh! But Rachael, you are welcome to unmute, and I know you're probably boarding a plane, maybe boarding a plane. Who knows?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Adrien. I am so sorry, and I genuinely appreciate this. So just really briefly, Indigenous Women Rising is a reproductive justice organization based in Albuquerque. We fund abortion, midwifery care, and menstrual products for any Indigenous person who needs it. Considering what has happened with Roe, we're anticipating a huge influx of people who need our help. So we not only pay for abortion care, we also pay for food, childcare, aftercare, hotel, flight, bus ticket, Lyft, Uber, whatever it is that people need. We send funds directly to the clinics. We also fund any trimester, so first through third. We're starting to see a lot more folks who need our help in their second trimester, even though we have a majority of our folks have already made their decision about terminating their pregnancy. They still need to fundraise. Imagine needing to fundraise for essential health care, the safest procedure in the world, just as people unfortunately have to fundraise for other healthcare needs. So it's a really dire situation, especially for Black people, trans folks, undocumented people. As much as our organization tries to incorporate abolitionist principles, a lot of our military folks are also without abortion care because of the Hyde Amendment. We do our best to be involved and stay on the up and up when it comes to policy. We were part of repealing a 1969 ban on abortion care that would have been in effect if Roe fell, and it did. And that's not the end. We absolutely should not be complacent with reproductive health care, which is not just women's care. So it also caution folks to be conscientious of the fact that it's not just women who get abortion care. It's not just women who have periods and who have the capacity to get pregnant. Nor is it just cisgendered women who can lactate and still need breast and chest feeding support, again, which is all stuff we provide. So again, when it comes to policy, we're really hoping that there are some good bills that we can really get behind. I'm not sure if we're gonna run anything ourselves, but if we did, it would start with culturally sensitive, pleasure inclusive, LGBTQ inclusive sexual health that is age appropriate for students in public schools. We already provide sex education to families and to classrooms and organizations who need it. So we're happy to also talk to you. I'm about to board this plane. Thank you again. As Robert put in the chat, we do have a toolkit. We're happy to reimburse you for printing if you need it, because we have brochures in there. We have flyers. We also have a political art toolkit that talks about reproductive health care. So all of those resources are, all of those resources are available for free. And again, if you're interested in putting them out on your table or anything like that, because we're a C3, it's not necessarily, of course, endorsing candidate or a party, but they are free to the community, and we're happy to reimburse for any costs that come with that. So thank you again, Lord 11, Robert, and Adrien.
Thanks, Rachel. Have a safe flight, and it's really great to see you. And thanks for joining us and for letting us know. Yeah, so the links I sent in the chat. So there there's a little toolkit you can use. You can spread the word about it. You can post it to your socials. You can share with your family and everything. No worries. Thank you, Rachel. And also, please give to the abortion fund. I've linked the Indigenous Women Rising's website. But there's also other abortion funds like the Mariposa Fund. There's the Religious Coalition abortion fund as well. You can definitely find those linked on the IW Rising website. And just if we could give like one last round of applause for Rachel as she boards the plane with safe travels, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us, Rachel. And we will pass back to Adrien. Thank you, Adrien, for being so flexible, and yeah, we'll just keep trucking along.
Sure, no problem. Okay. Yeah, so the really exciting thing too, Robert, is that even if you've had our training before with me in these last 14 years that I've been grinding these trainings out, I have a new trainer. I have a new, actually a program manager, a new education and outreach program manager, who's one of the people who's being brought in to take my place as I transition out at the end of the year this year. So we have a new ED, Michael Trim. We're hiring 2 new director level folks in the next couple of months. We're posting those jobs right now. We're posting a director of advocacy job right now. So if you know trans or non-binary people who like this type of policy work and thinking about these things, we're really looking for that person right now. So help us. That job posting is on our website. But one of the people we already did bring in was Stacy Fatemi, who is incredible and is already doing about 95% of our transcultural fluency trainings. They brought in their own slides, their own kind of version of our content. So if you've already had our training, you kind of haven't already had our training right now, because the TCF training is new and refreshed and coming from the perspective of a 25-year-old trans feminine, non-binary person of color. So it's really exciting. The training is new. Even if you've had the old training, believe me that it's new right now, and it's worth coming in and checking it out again. So we'd love to do the ward. We'd love to do any groups, like for sure. We'd absolutely love to do any group we're invited to do. So thank you for thinking about that. Does somebody have a question? No, not right now. Okay. Tell me now when I have to stop. You know, Zane used to always threaten to make one of those big metal hooks like they had in vaudeville where they jerk you off the stage, you know, with a big old giant shepherd's crook, you know. He always was saying he was going to make one of those for me because you can't take me anywhere. I could literally talk all day, but I can kind of skip this terms and vocabulary content if I need to just wrap it up.
You know what? Go for it. We have some extra time now that Rachel's done. So yeah.
All right, rock on. So yeah, 3,000 trainings since I started. I think I have done 3,000 of those trainings literally. Last year, Michael said I did 365 of those trainings by myself. So I'm super excited to have Stacy, as you can imagine. It's a whole new world for me. Not having to do 365 trainings this year is better than doing 365. Okay, but here's what we talk about. And again, this is a teaser. This is like a commercial for the 2-hour training. Okay, this is not a training. This is just like kind of what we would talk more about if we really did the training. Okay. So when we talk about our stuff, the heart of our training is breaking down these 4 things, the 4 aspects, the 4 attributes. And those are sex, which is physiological, right? When we talk about biological sex, we're talking about genitals, we're talking about hormones, we're talking about chromosomes, we're talking about gonads, right? Testes and ovaries, that's sex. And your designated sex is not even your biological sex. It's less complicated. It is simply your genitalia when you are born, right? On the moment you're born, somebody looks at your genitals and says, it's a boy or it's a girl. They designate you male or female on your birth record based on those genitalia. And that's okay. I'm not mad or anything, but that's just called your designated sex because it's what you were designated at birth, right? Now, separate from that, if you can believe it, is what we call your gender. And your gender, we define as simply what you know to be true about yourself on the inside. And we know that these are 2 separate things instead of the same. But in our dominant culture, in dominant US culture, we don't know that, right? Because we still say stuff to kiddos like, oh, well, you're a boy because you have a penis. And every time we say that, we're saying that these are the same thing, right? In our dominant US culture right now, we're really into these events that we call gender reveal parties. But you can't reveal the internal gender of a baby that hasn't even been born yet. What we're actually revealing is their sex. We're revealing their genitals. I mean, if you want to be real about it, right? We're actually having fetus genital reveal parties, which is what I like to call those parties because I think it's going to help them taper off, right? Let's all call it that, okay? Next time you get invited, just say, yes, I would love to come to your fetus genital reveal party. What should I bring? Ask them. Can't wait. It's going to be so fun. You know, my bar for a party is really just if there's cake, you know? So if you want to have a party where you tell if the baby has a penis or whatever, I don't care. I don't judge. I'm not mad, whatever, you know? Let's just not make so much out of it, right? The problem with those parties is that we reveal the genitals of the baby and then we hyper extreme gender the baby's entire environment based on their genitals. And that is where it gets super weird, right? Because these are not the same thing. These are 2 different things. You know how I know? I'm trans, right? So for me, these things don't match. I was designated female at birth. I was born not very far from here in Oxford, Mississippi. In 1970, in July 17th, actually, next week is my birthday. And so all those years ago, I was born here and they picked me up and they said, it's a girl, yeah. And the minute I could talk, when I was about 3 years old, I started telling everybody, I am a boy, y'all. I was like, I'm a boy. But that was 1973, right? So my parents were like, what? No, shh, don't say that. You're not a boy. And I was like, uh-oh, that's not cool. But my gender and my sex have never matched. In fact, they're almost opposed, right? Mine are very far apart. So I know these can't be the same thing. And I'm also not the only trans person. So if trans people exist, which we do, and we always have, then we've got to come to understand that sex and gender are 2 different things about you, just like your hair color and your eye color, right? Those don't always match either, but mainly they do. Most people all over the world have brown hair and brown eyes. But some folks don't, and this is the same thing, right? No big deal. It's a minority characteristic. We're making too big of a deal out of it, but that's what we do, right? We are really hard on minority traits, humans are, right? If you think about it, over the years, we've been horrible to redheaded people. We've been horrible to left-handed people, which all of that is the same thing as this. It's just a way that some small set group of people are born. It's no big deal, right? It's a trait that we have that's not hurting anybody, and it's not even hurting us. So we're going to come to understand this the way we understand left-handedness. But I bet we have folks in this room who have seen the persecution of left-handed people in your lifetime, right? We may even have somebody in this room whose little Hanny was tied up when they were little, right? In my trainings, I often still have people who say, that happened to me. A teacher tied up my hand when I was little, right? Can you even imagine? So often we do a terrible job dealing with this kind of stuff. And then over time we learn, right? Because now we don't tie up little left-handed kids' hands. We make their little scissors so they can cut, right? Same thing with trans people. That's exactly what it's going to turn out to be like. And separate from all of this is the way you look. That's called your gender expression, not the same thing, right? Totally separate. The way somebody looks is not enough information to guess how they feel on the inside. Is that destabilizing to you? It is to me, right? My whole life, I've been guessing about people's insides based on their outsides. Even y'all's names are making my brain want to classify you, right? I'm looking at you, I'm looking at facial hair, I'm looking at clothing, I'm looking at names. I'm like, that one's a woman, and that one's a man, and that one's a man, and that one's a woman in my mind, right? But what I know, because of the work that I do and the people in my life, is I actually don't know y'all at all. And that's why we put our pronouns everywhere now, because there are non-binary people who look exactly like me, and there are non-binary people who look exactly like you. And the more we get to know those folks and understand that they're part of us, the more we'll understand that we just have to say our pronouns, you know? Again, it's no big deal. We're just getting used to it. And separate from all of that is who you like. And we have to teach this because of LGBT, right? LGBT, ba baby boo, makes it all sound like the same thing. So when we do our trainings, people really will say, like, but all trans people are gay, right? And we're like, what? No. How could that possibly make any sense? That doesn't make sense, right? Trans people are every kind of people. We're like left-handed people. It's the same kind of thing. It's just a minority characteristic, right? So trans people are gay, trans people are straight, trans people are pansexual, asexual, whatever you can name. This is actually how we visualize it. See how all of this is so separate? My gender and my sexuality don't even touch, right? Over here, my designated sex was female. So my dot goes right here on the left. But my gender goes all the way over here on the right, because what I have always known myself to be is a man. And my gender expression falls kind of right here. Like, I'm pretty stereotypically masculine for dominant US culture, but I'm not married to it, you know, and I'm not macho or anything. I love musicals, you know, but over here is not me. This is who I like. And for some reason, I can't explain this at all, but I am only attracted to female appearing people. I don't get it, right? But for me, that could definitely include a transgender woman. It doesn't have to be a cisgender woman. It just has to be women's jeans, you know, women's tennis shoes. I don't know. I can't tell you why. So for me, I kind of do this over here. Like, this is where my orientation falls, is like this whole side of the circle, right? So for one quick second, silently look up here and think about yourself. When you were born, what did they say you were? And then separately from that, how do you feel on the inside? Separately from that, how do you think other people perceive your gender based on your clothes, hair, jewelry, makeup, facial hair? That's your gender expression. And then way on the right-hand side of the page, what kind of folks are you attracted to? Or maybe not, right? Some folks are asexual. They don't feel that kind of attraction to people. That's okay, right? That's a whole different way of having an orientation. Okay. So trans just means sex and gender not matching. That's all it is. It doesn't mean opposite. It doesn't mean medical, right? Some folks don't feel that they're a man or a woman. They feel like something else. And that is often these days called non-binary. And all these different words are identity labels for non-binary people. Right? I mean, this is why it's a 2-hour training, no kidding. right? There's a million more minutes we need to spend talking about all of this. So what are trans people dealing with? Horribly, we know this from every kind of data. And the data that always kicks me in my gut is the data from the New Mexico Youth Risk and Resiliency Survey. And we now have 3 survey cycles with the YRRS where the kids are being asked if they're trans or non-binary. So we're seeing that first of all, the number of students who answer that they are trans or non-binary on the YRRS are like between 3 and 4% consistently. And consistently, there's another 3% of New Mexican students who say, I'm not sure, which honestly, I would say not a lot of cisgender people say that, right? Not a lot of cis people sit around wondering if they're trans. You know what I mean? That's just not kind of the deal. And the unsure kids data is just as bad as the trans kids, y'all. And let me tell you what that looks like. 9 times the unstable housing, 3 times the experience of sexual violence. So that's 30% versus 10. And I'm not talking about in their lifetimes. I'm talking about within the last 12 months prior to taking the survey. And 4 times the suicide attempt, to a total of 1/3. 1/3 of the trans and non-binary kids have applied lethal means to their bodies, but survived within the last 12 months in New Mexico. That is what we're talking about, right? And these are a lot of the reasons why. Yeah, here we go. I didn't know I had this in here. Way to go, me. And all of this is on the YRRS site. If you don't know about the YRRS, it is the most golden surveillance tool I have ever seen. This is public high school students all over the state that take this. There's only 3 counties where there's not a participating school. And not every school participates, but schools from every single county almost do, right? So it is amazing. And it's so amazing how the kids just answer the questions honestly. I don't know, it's totally confidential, but they're very brave about just telling us the answers to these things. And this is what the trans and non-binary kids say, y'all. And now, as y'all very well
Adrien,
know,
can I ask a quick question?
please, yeah, please.
On that last slide, could you go back to that really quickly?
Yeah, totally.
Are you saying this is what the transgender kids are saying, like 35% of them have unstable housing, or 35% of youth have unstable housing?
No, 35% of the 3.2, 35% of the positively identified trans kids, 35% of them said, I don't have a safe and stable place to stay every night. That's my own. And you know why? Those kids are being kicked out of their family homes for being this way. Right? The cisgender kids have a rate of, what does it say? 2.7%. So if you're not trans, you're very unlikely to have unstable housing. It probably has a lot more to do with your family experiencing poverty, right? But for the trans kids, being trans is the risk for unstable housing.
Right. Thank you for sharing that website.
They're very likely to have been kicked out.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you for asking that question. Yeah, this is the 3.2% versus the roughly 94% who identified as cis. Right, so the first stats are all the 3.2% group, and the second stats on the page are the 94%. We left the unsure kids out of the bullet points because I didn't want to muddy the water statistically. But I'll tell you that the unsure group, the 2.8%, their data is every bit as bad as this. I mean, they are sometimes worse.
And look at that forced sexual violence. Oh God, forced sexual intercourse.
I mean, I want to lose it. It makes me want to lose it. I mean, the cisgender numbers are not okay. You know, if it's more than 0, it's horrible.
Right.
You know? But I mean, look at the trans kids. It's like horrific. It's almost unbelievably high.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, thank you for this data does that to me too. It literally stops me in my tracks. My kiddo, I'm a dad, and my kid is an incoming senior. He's 17 and a half. So I know, I mean, these are 15, 16, 17-year-old New Mexicans. These are our kids answering these questions. And this is what they're saying.
I'm so glad you talked about this. I hadn't heard of this survey before. I think I may have, Adrien, because I had written you once after I heard you on my friend's podcast. But
Yes.
I'm glad you shared this, Robert, because I didn't, the website, I mean, because I had not, I wasn't aware of this. Is this a nonprofit that just does this kind of research?
It's not a nonprofit, it's a state organ. I mean, it's every state in the country has this survey. Nationwide, it's called the SHARP survey. But each state administers it themselves. They call it what they want to call it, and they have some leeway around the questions and the real estate. So
I
like
see.
here in New Mexico, we went to the YRRS committee and we lobbied for a trans question for, I want to say 5 years before we got it on there in 2017. Because of course you can imagine it's precious. I mean, everybody has a question they're trying to get on there, you know? We all want to know about these kids and like who's pregnant, who's got a gun, who's drinking
Right.
alcohol, who's using tobacco, you know? So everybody has an angle where they want to dissect the data on these kids because it's such amazing data. But we said to them over and over, we said, if you will ask this, this won't be a huge group, but it'll be bigger than you think, and they will be having the worst outcomes. And before we move on from this, let me say what we always say in our 2-hour training, which is, I don't have this for y'all, and I'm sorry, I regret it. But let me tell you verbally, this is intersectional in nature, right? We know that the trans and non-binary kids of color are overrepresented in every negative outcome. We know that the trans and non-binary kids who are also immigrants are overrepresented. The trans and non-binary kids who are living with a disability, overrepresented. The trans and non-binary kids who are neurodiverse, overrepresented, which by the way, guess what? There's some unexplained, very high prevalence of autism within the trans and non-binary population. We don't yet understand it, but we can now see it. It's very clear. It is very clear. So think about being those things added together, right? We think about, because these are our sisters that we work for every day. We think about what it means in New Mexico to be a Native American transgender woman who's living on the street, who's HIV positive. I mean, that's not the same thing as me as a trans person, right? I actually gained an unearned social privilege when I transitioned. Right? So this is not
Right. I'm so glad you see that, Adrian. That's, yeah, I'm so glad you
this is not
acknowledge
evenly
that. That's a great point.
distributed among these kids, right? Kids whose families are also living in poverty who are trans. Come on, you know, it's bad. So we know, I mean, we know that some white affluent trans kids are 100% attempting suicide and dying by suicide. We don't want to say that they're not affected, you know, they are affected, but we know that this is not an even distribution when we look at these numbers. We don't want to make the mistake of thinking it's like a blanket. It's not a blanket. It's one of those topographical maps, you know, for sure, for sure. So one of the reasons is this, for sure. As y'all very well know, I mean, y'all are literally the choir. When I say to you, this is coordinated, centralized GOP strategy to use trans people as an intentional wedge issue right now to be a distraction, and not trans people, trans kids. Every one of these anti-trans bills very specifically targets either healthcare access or sports participation for trans youth, not trans adults. And I just showed you how fragile they already are. Now their electeds are in the legislature talking about their right to go to the doctor. I mean, what does that do to your mental health? I cannot say, but we're worried about it. I'll tell you that. We're very worried about it. And this has been just, I mean, yeah, 21 was the high water mark for anti-trans legislation. And then it was 22. In April, it became 22. There was like April 12th that we hit one more bill than there was in 21. And then it went up from there. So we do think there will probably be something in 23, but we do expect to be able to extinguish it pretty quickly. So yeah, we think these are the keys, you know, to what you can do to help. I mean, obviously donating to EQ&M right now, leading up to the legislative sesh, donating to TGRC anytime is always going to help trans people. We think getting the 2-hour training is really important because I know 2 hours sounds like a long time, but Stacy will make it fly by, y'all. Just like today probably did. It did for me. I hope it did for you. I'm like, today flew by and y'all are like, oh my God, can you leave already? When is this going to be over? But I think our training kind of flies by, you know, and in 2 hours, you will feel so much more comfortable, so much more capable, so much more confident about all of this, and then that'll help you to be a better ally and better advocate. Joining our mailing list and joining EQ&M's mailing list is totally key on the advocacy side. Neither one of our groups send out an excessive amount of email, but we always are going to hit you with like an alert, like, "Ooh, it's time to call your legislator." We were sending out a ton of alerts this week about APS school board. So for sure, if you want to get on our mailing list, that'll be your number one shortcut to knowing when there's trans or with EQ&M whole LGBT stuff going on, Oh, sorry, I'm an ED. Let me move past that. I'm like, donate right now. No, just kidding. Here's how you contact us, okay? Here's how you reach out to us. And all my stuff is in the chat, but let me put it one more time.
While you're doing that, Adrien, I feel the need to say to my fellow ward members, so I'm Trish, I'm in 11C, and I first heard Adrien speak on my friend's podcast. My friend Eric is an independent journalist, and he's been traveling the world for like 10 years, teaching people how to do podcast trainings in Palestine. He's just all over the place. And he did this podcast with Adrien, and I'm like, "Hey, you did it." And I never get to listen to Eric's podcast. I'm like, they're an hour and a half. I don't have time for that. But he did this one with Adrien. I'm like, "Hey, that guy's from New Mexico." He's like, "Yeah, it's really good." So then we start talking about trans issues. This is years ago. And, what I loved about Adrien's talk is like, nobody ever wants to admit when none of us want to admit when we're like, "I don't get that," or should people that are trans play sports? I don't know about that. But no one ever wants to say that because they're like, "Fuck no, I'm going to be attacked if I say that," and I had never heard somebody like Adrien, an activist and an advocate from such a discriminated against population, speak so lovingly. Like I felt like just listening to the podcast Eric did with him, I was like, I just want to be best friends with Adrien. I feel like I could ask that guy anything and he wouldn't get offended. I feel like I could ask him anything and like have the real conversations where I'm like, "But do you think so I just wanted to put that out there. In fact, I'll try to look up Eric's podcast with Adrien and share it in a link if you guys want, because I was so impressed. I literally had never heard an advocate speak so articulately and so openly about like, "Ask me anything, like this doesn't make me uncomfortable." So anyway, thank you, Adrien. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for saying that. He's coming to New Mexico for a visit and looking for a place to stay. It was on my Facebook page. I'm excited to meet him in person. That was so fun doing that. And Stacy's exactly the same way, y'all. We make a big point of it at TGRC to be exactly that way, because for us, the education that we do isn't activism, it's education. And we're activists sometimes, right? Like sometimes we have to get out there and just be like, "No," right? Hold up a sign and be like, "That's not okay." But when you're trying to teach people, they don't learn if you shame them. So we have an agenda, like that's kind of our secret, is that we actually have an agenda to help people to feel differently about this. And we know we just shut people down. You shut them down the minute you make them feel bad, You can't just be canceling people in a training. They just click. They're like, "Nope, I don't ever want to hear about that anymore now." Yeah. Thank you. All right, I've kept y'all too long. I was on the agenda and then I took up the whole agenda and now I should probably go.
No, I love it. And I appreciate that you took extra time and I was actually, so Bob and I were texting about like, maybe we should do like the joint Ward 11C or Ward 11, like 2-hour training. I think I would love it to do it again.
Come on. Email me and I'm helping Stacy schedule right now. But even if you catch me after we're done with that, I can put you right in touch with Stacy. There's no wrong door with us. You can always reach out to me and I'll get you to the right person. No problem. No problem.
Robert, if you plan it, it'd be great to have it so that anybody in the county can attend.
That'd be cool.
We had Adrien, it's been since 2019. Yeah. So it's been a while. So we're ready for a refresher now.
Exactly. We should get Stacy's recording up there, because Stacy's like the future, the future of the education.
Always a pleasure hearing you.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much.
Well, knowing that, so before you go, Adrien, I know there was a question in the chat. So I know Barbara asked this question in the chat. Can you say again what the trans autism spectrum is?
Yeah, we don't really totally understand it, Barbara. It's so interesting. We just know that there's an unexplained high prevalence. We can see that the prevalence of autism in the trans and non-binary population is higher than in the general population, measurably. We don't yet understand the causation. We just see the correlation. We can see that being trans puts you at a higher rate of being autistic or vice versa. We don't know. I mean, honestly, for me, just as somebody who's lived in this community for so long, I honestly wonder if it isn't that we sometimes want to call people autistic when they don't have a comfortable gender presentation. Like in such a binary society, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of non-binary people get called autistic just because they don't conform, like they're not fitting into our social structures in the way we want them to, kind of thing, you know? So I don't know. I mean, who knows what it all turns out to be. I know I'm not on that spectrum, and I'm trans. I know plenty of autistic folks who are not trans, you know, and I'm trans and not autistic. So it's a Venn diagram, but it's a bigger interior, you know, overlap than it is for the general pop with autism. We don't know yet.
Thanks for that clarity, Adrien.
Thank
I'm
you.
just going to invite folks, if you have any questions, you're welcome to drop them in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself. I know that this is
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
one of those things where it's like Trish brought it up. Like, here he is. Let's ask these questions. I see a lot of folks here say, thanks, Adrien. Mary, this is from Marianne. I first heard you present at one of the Affordable Housing Coalitions some years ago and really appreciate your longevity and the advocacy. I feel like I've known you forever too, Adrien. So I really appreciate that you've been in this for a long time too. So
Random thing, by the way, I didn't know that left-handed people used to be treated that way. Like when Adrien said that, I was like, what if my brother used to be treated that way? I didn't know that. What the fudge, right?
They said that you were possessed by a demon.
yeah.
If you were left-handed. The word sinister comes from the Latin word for left, which is sinistra, right? I mean, it was like, and you know, no shade, I'm sorry, I don't usually draw this conclusion so bluntly for groups, but naturally, of course, it was religious persecution, right? It was saying it was against God to be left-handed. You know who else they did it to? Redheads. They burned redheaded women for witches during the witch trials. And they said, guess what? You were possessed by the devil. You know what they said about redheads? They said they didn't have a soul. And they said that they would actually try to steal your soul because they did not possess a human soul. What? I'm sorry, what are we talking about right now, right? So for trans folks, we realize we're just kind of in the wrong historical moment, you know? It'll change, but it takes time. It takes time.
Adrien, this is Jeff McConaughey. I'm just curious, what are the sort of practical consequences or if there are any, in fact, of having a gender designation on either your birth certificate or your driver's license of X?
None that we've seen so far, nothing. In fact,
Cool.
the federal government added X to the passport at the beginning of this year after like 10 years of advocacy and impact litigation to get them to do so. So what we really believe is that that's just the wave of the future. When we got it onto those two fundamental documents in New Mexico in 2019, I want to say we were like the 13th state to do it. We weren't cutting the edge there, right? So we think this is just rolling through the Western world. You're just going to see it everywhere you look at some point. You know, it's just going to be the choice everywhere, unless we split into two countries, and then we'll just see what happens about all of that. I guess maybe that I'm in Tennessee right now. It does seem ever more possible that we might not end up being one republic, you know, but if I think what we see is people traveling back and forth to any state don't have a problem. People, you know, I haven't heard from anybody who's traveled to somewhere like Iran or something with an X yet. I'd be very curious about that, but I haven't heard any stories about it. And TSA honestly doesn't care what your gender says. They care more that you match up with your document. You are the person you're supposed to be, right?
Okay.
Thanks for that, Jeff, and for you for enlightening us a little bit more around that. Is there anyone else have any other questions? Well, Adrien, really appreciate taking your time out on a Sunday to hang out with us and just be your ebullient self. I really appreciate that so much. It's always really great to see you. and always good to hang out with you just for like this little short bit of time. I see if everyone could give like Adrien a warm round of Zoom applause, that would be super helpful. And could you drop your contact information in the chat one last time? And that way, folks, if they missed that, they're welcome to have it again. And just, we'll see what we can do. Flora, I appreciate your suggestion about maybe doing a training for like the whole county to attend. I think that's super helpful. I'm only here for like the optimal foraging range that is 11C. So
Yeah.
I don't think I ever leave downtown or North Valley anymore. So like, oh my gosh. And now
that's
gone through a pandemic. I'm like, yeah.
And Adrien, really quickly, how big does a group have to be for you guys to do a 5?
5 or
Okay.
more.
Thank you so much.
And let me tell you this, if you have 1 or 2 people that really need the training and you really just don't have a group of 5, you should still email me, because we do a lot of trainings and settings like this where folks would not at all mind having somebody just sit in the back of the Zoom room and watch, So if we only have a 1 off or a 2 off, we just slip them into someone else's training. So for a full training, we say 5 or more. But if you're like, I only have 2 people, I just can't get 5 together, still reach out to me, because we'll find a spot for them. Awesome.
That is awesome. Well, I think that does it. I'll just do one last call for questions. Anyone else in the chat and the audience today? Appreciate a lot of the questions we did get.
Me too.
So I'm almost reluctant to ask this because I think it's probably a very large discussion. But you hear you hear a lot of like from people who tend to be more to the right side of the political spectrum talk about that it's wrong for parents to accommodate a young child's transgender wishes.
I'm so glad you
because we don't allow you to vote, or etc. You're not necessarily a fully formed person, so how can you make a decision about your own gender expression at 5 or 8 or 10 or something like that? What do you say to that when someone comes up with that as their beef with the transgender community?
I have 2 things actually that I say to that, because I don't ever know what's going to get through to them. So the first thing that I start with is that even the American Academy of Pediatrics has now released a statement saying that trans and non-binary kiddos usually know our gender between the ages of 3 and 5, the same way that cisgender kids do, right? Typically, children know about gender and start to decode gender and their own gender between 3 and 5. So that's not different if you're trans or if you're cis. That's just the developmental stage where we expect that to happen for the most part. With trans folks, that's not always true. And especially with non-binary folks, that's not always true, because how are they going to name themselves when nobody even gives them that word to you? How do you say you're non-binary when you're 3 in a family where you're like a boy or a girl, right? So there's a lot of exceptions to that, and that's fine. It's still got stigma. There's still persecution. Not everybody starts to assert this by the age of 5, but I did. That's the second thing that I tell people, right? I knew this when I was 3 years old, and I've never not known it. And the best proof of my gender at 3 is me. Right? I'm 52 and I'm still a man, exactly like I was when I was 3. So for me, I ask people to look at that child and think about me and all the other people that I represent, right? Like I'm representative of I'm a very tiny tip of this huge iceberg, right? So if there's a lot of other people like me who are adults now who knew at 3 and would have been much happier if our families could have understood what we were saying, then don't be your child's first bully. Listen to them. Listen to what they're saying, because a lot of us will tell you that we were 100% certain about this at that age. And the kid doctors of America are backing us up. Yeah. I also say, take the training. I always say, please take the training. Just take the training. I beg of you. Let us train you for 2 hours, and I think you'll feel a little bit better.
Thank you.
That's such a great question. That is one of the most common talking points that we encounter, right? Which to me is actually a much bigger issue of what you could almost call childism in our culture, where we just think children are like adorable little morons and not human beings, like I don't get that. Why do we treat kids like that? I don't even get that, And as a trans kid myself, I really don't get it. It's like, what on earth, And what are we talking about? There's no medical, that's the last thing I usually say to them, is there's no medical treatment that can even be administered before the age of like 11. And the 11 age treatment is a 100% reversible puberty blocker, right? There's no permanent effects from it. So at 4 years old, all you are saying is, I will not allow my child to cut their hair, pick out their own clothes, or be called by a name that makes them feel more respected. And for me, I don't see the argument in that. Like, why won't you do that? I don't get it. My kid at 3, if he'd asked me for any of that, I would have been like, sure, yeah, it's your hair. Like, well, it's expression. It doesn't matter, but that's me, right? Yeah. It's ageist, exactly. Childist is what one of my great volunteers in our parents group does an amazing training actually about what she calls childism, like the prejudice against children, right? Bigotry against children. It's totally true. Totally true.
This has been really great. I really appreciate this conversation so much today on a Sunday.
Me too.
Let's dismantle all of it. Dismantle all of it. Yeah. I know I spoke about my hair earlier, about the length of my hair, and that's part of the reason why, is that we are so gender conforming towards how men are supposed to have short hair. And I know I was called all kinds of weird names growing up with long hair. Until I met my partner, who's like, I think your hair is fine. You look like, like a native person. I'm like, she's native. And I was just like, they don't frown upon men with long hair. I'm like,
in fact, it can be an actually masculine marker, right? Yeah. Which shows that every bit of that crap, all the gender expression stuff, y'all, is cultural. Yeah. There's not a single behavior or garment or social role that I can find that is universally coded as masculine or feminine among all human societies. How interesting is that? Yeah. Right? We call it a skirt, but if I was Scottish, they might call it a kilt, and I'd be wearing the heck out of my kilt because it's my family's tartan, and I'd be all about that kilt. But here I kind of don't feel that comfortable. Like, sorry to reveal this about my own insecurity, but I'm a trans guy. I'm like, no, I don't want to take crap for wearing a skirt in the United States. It took me too long to become the man I wanted to be, that I knew I was. Now I'm not into people mocking my masculinity if I can help it, Yeah. Like, whatever, I'm just not going to invite it out on the street, But if I was Scottish, I wouldn't even think of a kilt that way. I would just be like, put on your kilt and let's go, y'all. Long hair cannot be male or female. Long hair does not possess the ability to be male or female. It is 100% your culture that teaches you how to think about that.
That's absolutely right.
So cool. I love that you're talking about that. Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
It's gonna be all right. Let's talk about it. Right.
All day long. All day long.
I see some family like.
Yes. Okay, no, exactly. We're supposed to go to my dad's for dinner, and I'm the one all worried about us being on time. And now they're in here like, see, shepherd's crook. I told y'all, giant metal hook to get me off the stage. Somebody's got to make one.
I feel like that door cracking open is probably gonna be.
That's it. That's my bell. That's my dinner bell, y'all.
So big thanks to your family and to you for lending us.
Y'all. No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
All right, we will see you next time, and we'll definitely be in touch about training. And if anyone else has any further questions, I know Adrien's contact information is in the chat. Please feel free to reach out. And I think we can move on to our next thing. Thank you, Adrien. Really appreciate you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, that was great. I loved
Yeah.
it. We should have more of those. Let me see if I can do this really quick. Go to the gallery view so we can see everybody. So we don't have much left in our agenda for today. We just wanted to make sure that we gave some ward updates. I know Flora unfortunately had to leave, but I know she had some announcements that she had in the chat. I know that there is a Democratic Party Summer Social on July 12th, which is in a couple days. It'll be at the Press Club. If you don't know where the Press Club is, it's over there off I-25 in Central. It's like just behind I can't remember the name of the hotel over there, but it's just behind there. I believe it's from 6 to 7:30. I believe it's a mixer for Democratic Party volunteers and local Democratic Party candidates. So there'll be like drinks and soft drinks and water and good stuff. And there'll be, as far as I know, Rob Janoff is the live music that'll be there as well. We also have a CCC meeting on July 31st. It'll be in person. There'll be more details. So if you're not, if you are subscribed to the Blue Review, please do so on the website. That way you can keep up with some of the dates that are coming. Flora did not mention also, but there is a September social, big September social that Felice also alluded to in the chat earlier today. So that is, and I know we sent it out in our email newsletter a few weeks ago. So that will be September Fest, September 18th, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Hubble House. So keep an eye out for more information on that. I know Terry Storch is one of the folks corralling volunteers. She's not here today. She's, I believe, out camping, enjoying her camping time today. So feel free to reach out to Terry. I know a lot of folks have her email address already, so we'll make sure that folks have that. Yes, thank you, Barbara. So redistricting is almost done at City Council right now. So I believe it's their next meeting is where we're going to make the decision on the lines. I know they've been jamming out emails like crazy about the lines. So there are, I believe, 8 different maps that are being proposed at City Council right now. So please check them out. And there are some changes, just so you know, just so you take a good look at one of those maps and see where it is that we're falling into in terms of where City Council is going to be. I know District 2 is going to be different. Just looking through all those maps, it's interesting. So there's some increase to the west side, which I'm like, oh, okay. So interesting stuff with some of those new redistricting map in Park Central. Thank you, Barbara. But I'll open up. Does anyone have any community announcements they want to give before we wrap up for the day? I'm like, what else is happening? Bob, do you have any other announcements you want to hand out?
No, I don't. Sorry.
It's all good. I know I just gave away a lot of the parties information. I'm just trying to think of other community things that are happening around there. Trish, you're on mute if you're talking.
Thank you, Robert. On Barbara's chat just now, she said, please pay attention to city council meetings regarding upcoming redistricting. How do we do that? Does city council have like a website? I know with our city councilor, it's just one big newsletter of links and I never know what's going on. But like, what's a quick way to keep in touch or keep updated? What do you think, Barb?
Well, you know, one of the big issues for me is that there has been kind of an upsurge map, and I know all the progressives haven't been up on it, but the issues are really, are we going to fully empower our minority districts? I mean, we have got a lot of Hispanics who are disempowered in our city because of the way city council districts are drawn. And so there's a new map that's not the most contiguous. Some people are raising issues about it, but if we want to empower our Hispanic community, I think we should really be paying attention. And District 2 is one of the places where that issue is big, because we could, you know, and the other issue for me is, you know, east side, west side. Are we just having, we have the west side districts and they're all this sort of a ubiquitous block, or are we going to try and make our city into a whole by linking some of the cross neighborhood, cross river connections? And
yeah, that's so true.
I really think it's a big issue, and I don't know that we can prevail with the people's map because of it, but
is that what it is? Are you saying there's a people's map we could all get behind? Are there like?
Well, there is. It's the people's map, and it does sort of take District 2 across the river. And some people have raised issues about the contiguousness of it, but it does help to create a stronger Hispanic voting block within city council districts. And I think it's worth considering. Joaquin Baca and Keith Romero, who have been really involved in the process with District 2, I think have been advocating a little bit for it. And I really think we should be paying attention because it is a little bit of an upstart and I doubt if we'll be able to prevail, but you know, our city is more than 50% Hispanic now, and we really should be empowering our Hispanic population more. And this is one way to do it. That's what I know. And I don't know. I think it's an uphill battle, but I also really resent the idea that the West Side is always voting as a block now. And, you know, then they create these coalitions with certain people on the East Side. And I don't think it's a way to unify our city, particularly to just have these West Side districts that that unite there on the West Side, and then, oh, it's this West Side, East Side thing. I think it's kind of a mess, and we really need a bigger city council, but we're not going to get that. So,
well, Barb, if you're up to date on this stuff, by all means, you still have all of our emails in Ward 11C. Feel free to shoot an email as well as a Facebook post on the Facebook page to say, I'm in support of this map. Would love for you guys to check it out. Write your city councilor.
Well, I think, there might be some issues, but honestly, I really think that the attempt has been made to empower the Hispanic majority in our city through this map. And I think it's raised some issues that we should be talking about, is all I'm saying. And I'm sorry that we haven't been able to have a broader discussion in our ward about it. Anyway, that's it. I mean, not
well, I'm just saying, feel free to email us though, Barb.
Okay.
I'm just saying, feel free to email us, Barb, because all of us, like, we all get busy with work and our kids and whatnot. So feel free, because I would love to write my city councilor and support a better map.
Yeah. It's just considerations that I don't think have been fully vetted in a broad way. And I think it's important that people actually, there were some really great people on the redistricting committee, and not just from our area of town, who were like, wait, we need to be paying a little bit more attention to the demographics and age, and trying to create more empowerment for people in our city who've been disempowered for a long time. And so I don't know, that's just my PR on it. Anyway, it's great to see you guys. Thank you so much for still doing these meetings.
Absolutely, and thanks for more information on the redistricting stuff too. I left the link for the redistricting project in the chat for anyone who wants to review the maps. And so I was on some of the early conversations with the maps for city council, and I know, like, you mentioned, like, we're not going to gain another city council seat, unfortunately, because our population did not increase, and that would require us to, even though we know, like, the last census was probably an undercount because of the guy, the head of our country, the guy who will not be named anymore. But yes, please take a look at the website, take a look at the new maps. And I know that there's an upcoming city council meeting. I think the next one is, well, we just had one, didn't we? Or is it tomorrow? It might be tomorrow. I believe it's next Monday, the 18th. So, like Trish was saying, right, your city councilor. For us, like here in 11C, it's probably going to be Ike Benton. But yes, but if I'll just open up for, I know Bob had to leave, his battery died on his computer, so unfortunately he was kind of forced to get off. But for anyone else out there joining us or been here, if you have any announcements you want to share, you're welcome to it, and then we'll kind of wrap up here in a second. Hi, Rachael. Well, with that, so I'm just going to share. I know everyone, if you haven't signed up for our email, we have this fun little, because we don't have a website, we do have this fun little Linktree link for folks if folks want to check us out. I'm not sure that you can have that here in the chat in a second.
I have tomatoes.
On link, but this is our Linktree, which has connections to our email subscribing list, our Facebook, and if you don't know, we actually do have a new Facebook page for Joint Ward 11C, and I'll leave that. I know that. Like us, send it to your friends. And then we'll make sure that we'll, you know, keep you as informed as possible as what our next activities are going to be. How we're gonna do some- I'm not sure who else is like going, but we're just going to do this really quick. There we go. Like, that was getting a little loud. But yes, we will just make sure if you sign up for any information for the newsletter, for the email, for the Facebook or anything like that, if there's any information you want to like need from us, or if there are ways that you want to get involved. I know specifically, like we've started to ask a lot of survey questions from folks on our email list. Hey, how do you want to be more involved? How do you want to like engage in the ward and some of the process, especially with not the primaries, with the midterm elections coming up and all that good stuff. So these midterms are going to be very critical. It feels like it's kind of up in the air in terms of polling, even though everyone says Republicans are going to win everything. And so I don't know. I hear a lot of different things with polling these days right now. So it's going to be a very interesting midterm election. And to quote our good chair Flora, like, it's so critical that we get people out to vote, register to vote, and also just vote blue as much as we can. It's so important. And as the two speakers we had on this call are indicative of today, it's so critical that there are so many people, there are so many children and families that are deeply impacted by the policies that are happening right now, that we need to show up strong for the midterms. So with that, I know Bob's not here, but I will just wish everybody a good rest of your Sunday and your Sunday evenings, and hopefully we'll see you very soon. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and all that good stuff. So anyway, hope everyone's well. Take care, and we'll see you very soon.
And my sheep say thanks.
Thank you.